Hello guys, this is the introductory video for FLACADA. The team members were Nicolas Morales and Mabel Amaya, and the product owner was Helen Gonzalez. What the FLACADA application did is a scheduling application where guests can view sponsors, speakers, sessions, exhibitors. They can also view FLACADA's About Us, social media, and any other outside links like the newsletter, jobs, getting involved with FLACADA. And then they were also able to create an account. So if they created an account, they had the ability to create their own schedule. So if you go to the My Schedule page, now signed in users have a button so that they can add sessions to their schedule. If they add a session to their schedule, they can see it on the My Schedule page. Besides that, we had admins being able to create sessions, speakers, sponsors, and exhibitors, and also delete them from the app so that they could maintain it. For the use cases, we pretty much had 3 actors, guests, admins, and advisors, which were the ones that had an account. Now, guests were able to view everything except for the My Schedule, and obviously being able to add sessions to their schedule. And then users that had an account were able to add sessions to their schedule and delete them from their schedule. And then admins could create and delete exhibitors, sponsors, speakers, and sessions. Now, for the architecture of our system, this is our deployment diagram. So these are all the little folders that we had. And then our hardware requirements are pretty much any computer where you can run a browser. And then the software requirements, the only thing that you need to have installed on your machine is Node.js, Express, and MongoDB. Everything else, as you can see, is just, an internet browser, a text editor, and then your terminal. And then Angular, you just get the code online of the version that you want to use for your application, and then you save it in a file, a JS file, a JavaScript file, and then you include it in your code. Now, the architecture of our application is an MVC. So MVC is the model view controller. So we separated the data into a model, the display into the view, and the controller into the application, and the application logic into the controller. And then we also did the mean stack. And the mean stack is the M stands for MongoDB, which is where we have our database. Express is the web framework. Angular is the front-end framework, and Node.js is the web server. Now, our class diagram, the classes that we had, were each of our actors, the admins, the users, the guests, and then we had exhibitors, speakers, sponsors, sessions, my sessions, which were the schedule, the sessions of the user, and then accounts. And then we also had, for guests, that they could see maps, homepage, the navigation bar, the Wi-Fi page, the FAQ, local events, and more. Now, the design pattern that we had is the command design pattern. What the command design pattern is you make a request and then you get the information back. So the way this worked in our application was that we were requesting information to our server, and then we had a callback function so that when the server was ready to give back information, it would either send the information that we requested with a success message, and then if not, it would send an error back. So these are our user stories. Now, the most important user story that we had, since we are a scheduling application, was adding sessions to my schedule. As a user, I would like to add sessions to my schedule so that I can create my own schedule for the conference. We had 3 tasks for this user story. The first one is creating the API routing for the backend. And then for the front end, it was calling the service from the server and creating the controller and the view. So this is the code for the API routing. We created a function to add my session. We got the user ID from the payload. And then we also got the session ID of the session that the user wanted to put in their schedule. We looked up that user in our database, and then we put that session under the list of sessions. Now, for the front end, in order to get the information from the server, we created a function, this one right here, in our service file for Angular. And this function would post to the server the information that we were trying to send, which was the session ID, along with the header, which has the token of the user that's going to give us the user ID in the server. Then we created a controller where we called that function. So we called it right here. And then once that function was done processing, we would either get a success. This is the callback function that I was talking about before. We would either get a success with all the information and the response, and then I posted a message that says successfully added to my schedule so that users would know that it was successful, or it will post an error. And then in the actual HTML file, which is our view, I created a button using that function so that when the user clicked on the button, it would add the session to their schedule. Now this is the sequence diagram. So as the user, if I click on the Add My Schedule button, that's going to call the function from the controller to add my session, and then Add My Session is going to call the function from the server that is going to post to the server the session that the user is trying to post to their schedule. So if that was successful, the user gets a message that says that it was successfully added to their schedule. If not, then they get an error message. Now, this is an example of what would happen. So right here, if you click on this button as a user, you would add the session to your schedule. It would say successfully added to my schedule. There's a link at the top that takes you to the page for my schedule. And then if you go to that link, you have your My Schedule page, and it shows you all the sessions that you've added to your schedule. Okay, now for the test cases, we had a good one and a bad one. The bad one was when everything wasn't fully implemented, and so we were supposed to click on the button to add session to my schedule, and then it should appear on my schedule. But when we tried clicking on the button, the session that we were trying to add to our schedule wasn't appearing on my schedule. So that test case failed. Now we had a good case, which is when we clicked on the button to add the session to my schedule, it appeared on the My Schedule page. So the test passed. Now this is our deployment diagram for the whole application. So our browser uses AngularJS and HTML5, that's the front end. And then our execution environment, it uses Node.js, which is the whole server. It has the application logic, the express middlewares, and the route handler. And then we have the database, which is MongoDB. And then this is the summary. FLACADA 1.0 is the first iteration of this application. We did it with the mean stack framework. And then it allows users to see exhibitors, sponsors, schedule sessions, and the architecture is scalable and easy to change. Thank you.
Guys, so here's the demo of the FLACADA application. So I'm not going to show you a guest because a guest can only see everything. The real meat and potatoes is within the user, the advisor privileges, and the admin privileges. So here, as you can see, I'm logged in as a tester account that I made up right now. So an advisor can view everything. Can view exhibitors, speakers. We have them by sorting over here. They can look at the details of that speaker. They can look at the session they're in. They can view local information. They can view the FAQs. And you see, there's no buttons. There's nothing. The user can only see this just like the guest. The part that it differentiates a guest between a user would be in actually that you can add sessions to your schedule. So I want to learn how to get a 4.0 GPA. God knows I need that. And I need to eat 5 pounds of pass. Let's do that. So now I'm going to go to my schedule link right here. And you see that my schedule has now all these sessions. I can also delete a session if I don't want to go to it anymore. And I can also start over, which deletes every single session within my schedule. And it's gone. So that's pretty much it for a user. So next up, we're going to show you the admin privileges of the FLACADA application. So the first thing we're going to show you over here in conferences is the scheduling. So here you see we have a lot more buttons than we had before from user and even guest. So here we can add a session, right? We're going to add how to make a sick pizza, right? Let's me put, what's today's date? Today's is the 24th, 2017 at 4 p.m. Oh, we also have this. Boom. And it's an hour class, right? So we also have here a validation where you can put like any random day, like 400 BC. It has to be from the past 10 years, I believe. So in the location, let's put Italy. And the description is how to make a crazy awesome pizza. Submit, and there it is. So also, there's a relationship between the speakers and the sessions. So I just made a general session right now. It has no speakers. So if I go back and add a speaker to it, it should add a speaker just to that session. So let me do, the guy's name is Fettuccine. I think that's how you spell it. Alfredo. Mama at mia.com. Chef. Let's put Homer Simpson's image. And institution, the kitchen. Sure, why not? So, and the wish list, we wanted to add a file uploader, but we just didn't have time. But in here, you can put any image that's in the database currently. Not in the database, in the file structure. There's a folder called images, and there we have a couple of PNGs. Or you can also get the URL of any image, and it'll resize it to the format that would look good on the app. So I'm gonna hit submit. So if I go back to the session, we see Fettuccine Alfredo right there, and see it'll be this size. All right. So we're gonna go back to schedule, and how to make a sick pizza, and then we can actually delete it. That single session only, and it shouldn't be there anymore. See, how to make a pizza is gone. So that showed the relationship between the speakers and the sessions and the API. And I can also hit reset over here, but then that will delete all the sessions, and I'd have to rewrite this, so I'm not going to do that. So let me go back to conference. Next up, we're going to show you exhibitors. So exhibitor is pretty simple. It has no relationship whatsoever. It's just posting something to the database. It has no, like I said, relationship that has to be validated before posting it to the database. So we're just gonna add an exhibitor, put a Nintendo, images, Nintendo.png. Also have a picture of the Nintendo logo there. Nintendo.com, crazy awesome games. And we're gonna submit, and there it is. And here you can see all the information. We're gonna go back to exhibitors, and here we can actually delete another privilege for the admin only. And again, the same thing with the reset. It deletes every single exhibitor, but I'm not gonna do that because I have to fill it back in. Next up is speakers. So remember, like I said, the speakers and the sessions have a relationship. But since I just deleted the session, it did not delete the speaker, because the logic behind that is you don't necessarily need to delete a session to delete you don't need to delete a speaker just because you deleted a session. The listing of speakers can still be there. So here it says I created him and it works on that side. Let me add it on this side, adding the session to that speaker's ID that is kept track of in the database. So I'm gonna add the session to it. So let me put back how to glaze a donut, right? Donut. Sure, why not? Oh, I can't spell today. All right. So let me put today's date. It'll be from 5/0, and today's date again. 6/0 p.m. What's the city the Simpsons live in? Oh, Springfield. So Springfield, and how to correctly glaze a donut. We're gonna submit, and if we look at the speakers, you can see that the session is right here. And then you can also go back to the speakers right over here, and we can actually delete it and see it's gone. And the reset button does the same thing as the other reset buttons. They delete everything. So if I go back to conference session, the how to glaze a donut is still there. So it has no difference whatsoever. So let me just delete this back to put it how it was before. So next up is sponsors. Sponsors is the same thing as exhibitors. There's no relationship whatsoever. So all you need to do is just post something. You fill the form, validates that all the fields are entered correctly, and post it to the database. Then let's add Amazon. I believe I'm an image of them to Amazon.png, Amazon.com. Mass leading online store. Submit. Oh, I don't have a picture of them. So if there was a picture, it would show up. And here's all the information. So another privilege is I can delete it, just that one, and the reset button deletes all of them. So we didn't have time to implement the API for local Wi-Fi and FAQs admin privileges, but it is already set up in the front end. So as soon as it's set up in the API, all you need to do is plug it into the front end. So in local, we have all these buttons where you can delete single items or all of them, and then you can add another local field. The same thing with Wi-Fi. You can delete it, and then you can add another Wi-Fi information. And the FAQs, you can do single FAQs, add more, or reset them. And that's it for the admin privileges.